Welcome back, minors. My name is Amber Johnston, and I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And I'm Tracy Kriegel. I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing as well. And it's time for your morning cup of joe.
Tracy, have you ever heard of the term button smashing in video games?
Yep, just hit that button as many times as you can.
It's pretty literal, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, for those of you who are unfamiliar with button smashing in video games, it's a term where we're playing a video game and we just press random buttons just as fast as we can, hoping that something works that will help us win the game. It's pretty much literally just hitting the buttons as fast as you can, just like Tracy said. So you're not even knowing or caring what you're hitting. You don't have a strategy. There's no forethought. We're just pressing as many buttons as we can, hoping that we might be able to hit the jackpot and get something right. So certain games like Super Smash Brothers and Mortal Kombat are pretty well known for being games that a lot of people button smash their way through. However, we do it in our real lives too. We tend to do it with our feelings. And we button smash or autopilot our way into avoiding feeling the feelings we do not want to feel. Instead of facing what we are feeling head on, we kind of find another way to go around it. Like, I'm just going to circumvent this and not deal with it. And most traditionally, when we think about that, we think about drugs or alcohol or sex or anything else that we can use to numb our feelings. However, let's say we avoid all of those things and we'll say, oh, I'm not going to drink too much or use drugs to avoid this. I'm going to deal with it in a healthy way. And we go and we try to do things to make our lives better in our ideas. But we can still unconsciously use other things to avoid feeling our negative emotions. Instead of just allowing ourselves to heal, we end up filling that space with something, or in some cases, everything else.
Right, so we could do a whole podcast on numbing activities. So what's the difference between numbing and button smashing?
That's a great question, Tracy. It's different, but it isn't. So when I do a numbing activity, I know that it's going to make me forget. Like, I'm doing the numbing activity, in order to not think about what I'm feeling. So if someone's drinking after a breakup, it's pretty obvious their goal is to forget about the relationship and the pain of the relationship for a little while. We know that, we acknowledge it, we know it's bad, we know that they're not healthy, we know that it's this is not a healthy coping mechanism. We go into it wholeheartedly knowing that's what we're doing. What I'm calling button smashing are behaviors that we might think are healthy coping mechanisms, but that we're using them in an almost frantic way as an avoidance technique to what we're feeling. And it's often used as an attempt to kind of fast forward the healing process. Like, I'm going to make myself more fit so she'll regret breaking up with me, or I'm going to learn such and such in order to, not to become a better person, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so we kind of press the fast forward button on our goals.
Gotcha. So kind of when you see it in a relationship breakup, but we also see it in cases with something bad that's happened, right?
Right. So in a breakup, a girl breaks up with her significant other, and then the next day she was supposed to go to a festival with her friends, let's say. She doesn't want to go, but she goes anyway, and she forgets about everything for a bit, which is okay, right? And then she volunteers to pick up some extra hours at work, and then she finds herself completing some extra credit assignments, and she thinks to herself, wow, look how productive I am. And then, however, how much of what she's doing is on autopilot? Mm-hmm. Has she stopped? Has she felt her feelings? Or is she just running full tilt, doing anything she can to avoid feeling?
It's like that runaway train.
Yes. Mm-hmm. If I stop, I'm going to cry. Mm-hmm. So if I don't stop, I won't cry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally avoidance of that real emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. And how often do we see that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because if I stop, I've got to actually recognize, wait, there's an emotion here, and I'm afraid of that emotion.
Yes. It hurts. I don't want to poke it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do that. Like we protect it. Like when you think of an animal that's hurt, like what do? They protect the injured body part. Well, we're kind of like that with our feelings. Our feelings are hurt, so we're going to protect it. And how am I going to protect it? I'm going to like cuddle around it, and I'm going to avoid anything touching it, which means including myself. So I'm not going to look at it. But however, when that never allows it to heal. We're never allowed to process it, feel our feelings, and move on from it.
And I think there's a lot of people out there who just don't know how to deal with or cope with that emotion.
Right. If you've never had to cope with an emotion like that, that's a huge ask. Like, I'm feeling this and I don't know what to do with it. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, and it's like, I don't know how to do anything with it. What do I do? And that's a hard spot to be in too, if you don't have the skills or ability.
Right.
So in this, she ends up being like, when we go back to the example with the girl, like she's like a runaway train. She can't stop. She can't feel. She feels like she's in danger of derailing. So when you get into a point like this where you're avoiding your feelings, you often feel like you're on a merry-go-round that's going too fast, or a train that's speeding and is going to derail at any second. So you just keep doing more and more and more and more. But guess what eventually happens is you do derail. You do fly off the merry-go-round. Like, it does happen eventually. We can only white knuckle it for so long. And that's where the button smashing, with the button smashing, why it's bad. So let's go over some ways that we might try to busy ourselves out of our feelings. So this is kind of a wake-up call of, hey, am I doing any of these? I went through a bad place in my life. Am I doing any of these activities that are common ways that people button smash through their emotions? So I might focus on helping someone or something else. This could be like a charity cause. It could be somebody in your life. Some people get pets and become super attentive to their pet, or take on a new hobby or a cause. They devote all of their time obsessively caring for something. They nurture it. It could even be a plant. You get a bit of dopamine from that nurturing aspect of it and from helping others. And that little bit of dopamine helps me feel better about myself because I'm doing something caring and nurturing and helpful, and helping people is a positive goal for most people. So I feel good about it. And then the bad part comes in because I'm helping others to avoid taking care of myself. And you can't pour from an empty cup. Eventually the cup gets empty and I've got nothing left to give, and I start injuring my own health by taking care of this other thing. But in the meantime, until that cup runs out, it seems to be working. Like, I can take care of this person and not have to feel my feelings.
Right. Which is just avoidance. Yeah, and avoidance isn't gonna get you anywhere.
Right.
Right. You gotta face the problem head on. But too many times people have practiced avoidance for so long that that's the only thing that they know. So yeah.
Right.
So another example is creating task making. So this is easily making busy work for myself. However, ask someone if they're doing this, and 9 times out of 10, they'll deny it. Nope, they absolutely needed their book sorted by color and author birth date. I can use these tasks to avoid feeling hard feelings while still getting that dopamine hit from completing a task, right?
Right. And you can see this a lot. And the most obvious example I give is like when somebody's procrastinating something. Like, if I don't want to write this paper, I might clean my closet out instead of writing the paper, because there's something that's making me avoid writing the paper. Because I'm doing another task to avoid it, like in this example, like sorting books. If I'm doing that, I have the emotional energy that's present. However, something's blocking me, keeping me from wanting to do this other thing. And what I'm talking about is that creative task making is the, like, I'm avoiding it by making these new tasks that absolutely have to be done. Oh, I've got to, reorganize my books. I've got to clean out my closet. I need to do this. I need to do that. When really what I'm doing is I'm avoiding feeling my feelings. It's that avoidance again, like you were talking about, Tracy.
Right, exactly. That's good. So
another one we do is we walk down memory lane. And so this is what you know what I'm talking about. You are cleaning your room and all of a sudden you realize you've been sitting on your bed looking at photos wearing a Batman mask for the last 3 hours. Or maybe that's just me.
right.
You know you do it. We all do it. We get caught. Nickelback even wrote a song about it. It's procrastination and avoidance tool. So instead of feeling tough breakup feelings, I'm going to think about my 4th grade field trip to the Capitol building and how much fun I had, instead of dealing with how much I'm hurting over this breakup. So we can become like kind of consumed by happy memories from another time.
Right. Well, and you know, reminiscing can be good, you know, because it brings about happy feelings, but it's still avoidance sometimes.
Yes.
So, you know, I think it just, in what perspective you put it, it can be a positive way of coping, but in the same sense, it's still a way around, you know, trying to cope with the situation at hand. So in the heat of the moment, if you're finding yourself, you know, struggling so bad, if you need to take a break, you know, you might have to take a break, but still got to come back and deal with the problem.
Yes.
Right, exactly. So another thing people do is finding someone to blame. You know, oh, the elusive why bucket's evil or cousin. I use this to assign fault to something or put all of my energy into hating or being angry at that thing. So I might even say it might not even be blaming them or for what I am upset about. I'm using blame, hatred as a channel for all of my negative feelings.
Right.
So yeah.
I'm mad. And so what I'm going to do is it's easier. The thing about anger that people don't immediately think of is that it's easier to be angry than it is to feel sad, to feel rejected, to feel those, because those hurt in a different way. Being anger is power. It gives us energy. It gives us a feeling of control to some extent. And so that's why people tend to use it as a tool, and with very not good results, by the way.
Yeah.
But it is a secondary emotion. So when I'm feeling these things that hurt very intensely, sometimes it's easier to be angry. And so I direct that anger towards a person or persons or something else to try to make myself hurt less. Because if I hate this thing over here, then I don't feel sad. I can put all my energy into being angry, and that anger is going to give me more energy to draw on.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody, let's say you have a family member that was killed in a car accident, okay? What you may do is get angry at a particular zoning law or a particular thing and use it as a driving force to focus all of those feelings into, instead of coping with your feelings of loss.
Right. True. Yeah.
Not saying that you can't do both simultaneously, because you absolutely can, but some people do that to an exclusion of, I'm going to focus all of my energy into this rather than feeling my feelings.
True. Yeah. I've seen situations like that. So, yeah. Okay. I was just trying to, wanted to not create a example.
So another one would be like binging pretty much anything. So sweet distraction. It's the bane of our mental health, but it's also kind of necessary sometimes. It's one of those things that can be good in moderation, but we often overuse it.
Right.
And when I say this, it could be video games, it could be sex, it could be movies, it could be podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm hyper focused on what's happening in this season of teen moms or beating a certain part of a video game, I can avoid dealing with my feelings. And so I become very obsessed. Maybe it's building a Minecraft world and getting it just perfect. And so what I do is I become obsessed with that form of entertainment, whatever it is, to the point that I'm not allowing myself to process what's going on.
Right. If you're binge watching Breaking Bad, you just got to get to the end of the season. And so, if somebody's doing that, I'm so distracted, I can't finish, my chemistry assignments. I can't finish my comp-sci, project, so it's like, can't get to what I need to do, so I'm distracted by what I don't need to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And we see this a lot with individuals. They'll be like, I can't get motivated to go do this comp sci project because I keep finding myself binging YouTube, or I'm binging this, or I'm doing that. And it's like, well, there's something happening here that's keeping us unmotivated and keeping us in this binging activity. What are we avoiding? Do I not have the emotional energy? Is there something happening with the class that I'm avoiding? Is there some feelings that I've got that are unresolved? Maybe I feel like I'm having feelings like I can't handle this, or maybe I'm having feelings of I feel stressed or having doubts in myself. And rather than, processing those and starting to feel better, I'm going to hide in binge watching this movie instead.
Yeah. Or is it just time management? Have we not given ourselves, a good time management plan as to where, allowing yourself to have some time within the day to do the activity, but not prioritizing time for your work.
Yes.
Sometimes we just get so fixated on that one activity that we don't prioritize our time correctly, So I think it's just, those distractions become priority, whereas the things that, need our attention don't get prioritized. And then all of a sudden we're in this cycle of, oh my gosh, we're just distracted by all the things that aren't priorities.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's important. So then I think the last thing is self-improvement. And this one is insidious. It can include exercise, self-help books, yoga, you name it. We start it with the intention to improve ourselves, but instead it becomes a way to avoid thinking about that thing I don't want to think about.
Yes. And you see, this actually is extremely common. I see it a lot with relationships. You have a breakup, and then you'll have one person that wants to heal from the relationship, and they get in this almost, I'm going to prove them what they're missing, kind of like, I'm going to prove them how much I've grown since the relationship or whatever. And so now I'm going to start going to the gym lately, like every day. And so then I become very hyper focused, again, that word, on going to the gym and getting healthy and following such and such diet plan or such and such eating nutrition plan or this or that or the other. And I become, even though it's self-improvement, it's now taken a central role of my life and is distracting from everything else. And it's a way for me to avoid feeling my feelings.
Yeah.
So now, in and of themselves, like what we've talked about, these 6 things, none of them, the things on this list, are bad, not inherently. Our issue comes in when we use them as a way to avoid facing our feelings. We're basically using otherwise healthy behaviors in a frantic ways that are unhealthy because we're using them as a numbing technique. Because anything really can be a numbing technique if we misuse it. Right. So what can we do if we realize we are avoiding our feelings? One of the first things we can do is just acknowledge it and say, yeah, like I'm avoiding feeling this. It's uncomfortable. I need to try to figure out what to do with it. Then from there, we can talk to a friend, or we can try to talk to a counselor or somebody else and try to explore what we're feeling. And if you aren't ready to talk to somebody about what you're feeling, you can try journaling or another outlet to kind of explore those feelings a little bit and steer into the skid as you're ready. You may need a little bit of time of binging your favorite TV show. Like, that's not unhealthy in a small amount. It's when we get to weeks and weeks later that it really becomes a problem. If you want to explore this topic further, we did a previous podcast on emotional regulation. It talks a little bit more about that. And we also did an episode on rain that talks a little bit about it as well. And that all has to do with that emotional regulation and handling our emotions in logical and complete ways.
I think one of the things that I would encourage our listeners to do is first and foremost, be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes we beat ourselves up and we just think, what is wrong with me? Why am I struggling so much? And people just kind of take themselves down this rabbit hole of, I'm not worth it. Life is terrible. Things are not going to change. And we start isolating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that place when you start identifying if that's the direction that you're going. Recognition is probably the first place that you can recognize, and being kind to yourself is the key.
Yeah. We are our worst critic. And I'll tell you, the inner voice in our head talks to us in ways we would never let another human being talk to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We would never talk to another person the way that we talk to ourselves in our own head.
Right, exactly.
And keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, you talked about the smashing the button.
Uh-huh.
And so, when you think about that, we become that person who's in charge of smashing the button.
Yeah.
And so we're the one who's in control of the button. And so we pick up the controller, and there's the A, the B button, and there's, what is that little circle? What is in control of the circle, but you've got all the different controller pieces of the controller. There's the up button, the down button.
Yeah.
There's the A's, the B's, but you are in control of all the buttons that's on the remote. And when you think about all the controllers, the pieces, realistically, you are the controller.
Yes.
And so you're the mechanism that controls everything. So whatever buttons you're pushing, you can stop them, you can start them. And so if you identify you're going left and left's not working, go right. If right doesn't work, go up. If up's not working, go down. If down doesn't work, stand still.
And that's what this particular podcast is all about, is just being intentional.
Yeah.
And realizing, okay, here's this thing, and I'm taking some damage here. Yeah. What do I need to do to help me not be taking damage anymore? Right. I could be frantic and just smash the buttons as fast as I can and try to hope that does something. Yeah. Or I can actually be intentional with my button presses and actually get something done.
Right. Yeah. So if you find that smashing the buttons is not working for you, stand still and stop smashing the buttons. And so there's people that on this campus, there's people in the community who are always willing to help you. And if you feel like life has gotten you to that place where there is no direction, mm-hmm. please know that there are people who care for you. And if you feel like you can't talk to somebody, please don't ever get desperate enough that life gets you to the edge.
Right.
Because there are people who care. And all you have to do is talk.
Absolutely. And there are also groups and different activities that you can do to kind of try to slow things down a little bit if it feels like things are going too fast. I know Tracy is running a meditation group, the power of
positive mindfulness program.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that is a program that would be able to help develop some of those mindfulness techniques and slow things down a little bit and allow you to feel a little bit more in control when those emotions get too much.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not familiar, and I don't know why, I'm just kind of throwing this out there on the table because it seems like when people just get, kind of out there in life and you just are smashing away at the buttons and smashing and smashing and smashing and people just kind of get to that place where things get overwhelming and there's no direction. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just need encouragement.
Yes.
Because you've gotten to that place where there is no direction. If you're not familiar with Kevin Hines, I encourage you to go to YouTube and check his story out. Are you familiar with Kevin Hines?
No.
Oh my gosh, you've got to read his story or watch his story on YouTube. Very inspirational. He got to a place in his life where smashing buttons just didn't ever work for him.
Right.
And so he's one of the only survivors who jumped off the San Francisco Bridge. And so he was actually surviving.
Yes, I've heard of that. I've heard of him. Yeah. Yes.
And so he has a great story to tell.
Wonderful.
So if you ever get to that point in life where smashing buttons, you just smashed and smashed and smashed and smashed. Very inspirational story because he just couldn't talk.
Right.
And, just don't be afraid to talk because people are here to listen. So we'll put that link in the
show notes.
In the show notes, yeah. So go to YouTube and watch his story. It's a great story to watch.
Well, miners, I hope you have a great week. We've enjoyed having you, and we will reach back out to you next week with some more mental health topics. Have a great week.
Thanks, miners.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle @S&T Wellbeing.